The Galactic Diner Discovery. Station Log 2487. Outpost Zenith 7. Talara's antennae twitched in disbelief as she watched her regular customer, James Chen, settle in for what he called second breakfast at her counter in the Galactic Diner. The Arthaxian waitress had been serving various species for over 15 cycles, but humans never ceased to amaze her. "Let me understand this correctly," she chittered, her crystalline eyes focusing on James as he spread something called jam on his toast. "You consume sustenance 5 separate times in a single planetary rotation." James looked up from his plate, a warm smile crossing his features. "Well, yeah. Breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, dinner, and sometimes a late-night snack. Some of us eat even more frequently, especially athletes or physical laborers." Talara's exoskeleton shifted colors slightly, displaying her astonishment in swirls of blue and green. In her species, a single nutrient absorption session every 3 days was sufficient. The energy expenditure alone of eating so frequently seemed wasteful, yet humans had become one of the most dynamic species in the galaxy. "But the energy cost," she began, only to be interrupted by the arrival of another human customer, Sarah Martinez, still in her cargo haulard uniform. "Morning, Talara. The usual, please. Coffee, extra strong, and your famous stellarberry pancakes," Sarah called out, sliding onto a stool next to James. "Just finished the night shift and need to refuel before sleep." Talara's confusion deepened. "You require nutrition before entering your rest cycle." "Of course," Sarah laughed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Can't sleep well on an empty stomach. Besides, I burned through a lot of energy during my shift. Had to manually realign the cargo bay doors when the automated system glitched." As Talara prepared Sarah's order, she observed the 2 humans chatting animatedly about their work schedules, their hands gesturing expressively, their voices full of energy despite what she knew had been long work periods. The more she watched, the more she began to understand. Humans weren't just eating frequently, they were constantly converting that energy into action. "Your species," she said thoughtfully, placing the steaming plate of iridescent stellarberry pancakes before Sarah. "You're like our station's fusion reactors, constantly consuming fuel to maintain high energy output." James grinned, finishing his toast. "That's actually a pretty good comparison. We evolved on a high-gravity world with lots of predators. Being able to eat frequently and maintain high activity levels kept us alive. Now it just keeps us productive." Talara's antennae quivered with curiosity. "But surely with modern technology, you could adapt to a more efficient feeding schedule." Sarah shook her head, already halfway through her pancakes. "We tried that during the early space exploration days. Nutrient pills, scheduled feeding times, the works. Turns out humans don't just eat for sustenance. It's social, cultural, and psychological too. We think better, work better, and feel better with regular meals." As if to prove her point, 3 more human workers entered the diner, their voices carrying across the space as they debated the merits of various breakfast foods. Talara watched in fascination as they ordered different combinations of dishes, each insisting their choice was superior for maintaining energy through their shift. The implications began to crystallize in her mind. Humans weren't just surviving in space, they were thriving, and their seemingly inefficient eating habits were part of that success. Their constant energy intake allowed them to work longer, adapt faster, and maintain their remarkable stamina. "I believe," Talara said slowly, her exoskeleton now shimmering with the deep purple of revelation, "I am beginning to understand why your species has become so essential to station operations. You never stop moving, thinking, working, because you never stop fueling yourselves." James stood up, leaving payment and a generous tip on the counter. "That's us. Always hungry, always moving forward. Speaking of which, I better head to my shift in engineering. See you for lunch, Talara." "Lunch," Talara repeated, her translator struggling with the concept of a 3rd daily meal. Yes, I will be here. Perhaps you can teach me more about human efficiency. As she watched James leave and turned to serve the other human customers, Tilara realized she had stumbled upon something significant. The story of humans and their 5 daily meals would spread through the station's alien community, but this was just the beginning of understanding what made these remarkable beings tick. Later that day, as she updated the station's cultural database, Tilara added a new entry: human dietary habits. Frequent energy intake appears inefficient, but enables sustained high performance. Further observation recommended. Note: stock more coffee. Cultural shockwaves. Station log 2487. Outpost Zenith 7. Afternoon cycle. The news spread through Outpost Zenith 7 faster than a quantum transmission. By the station's artificial midday, the Galactic Diner had become an impromptu observation post for various alien species, all discreetly watching the human customers' eating patterns with newfound fascination. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Vixtera, a towering Silaxian with iridescent scales, sat at the counter reviewing the station's medical logs with growing amazement. Their metabolic rates are extraordinary, she murmured to Tilara, who was restocking the human-specific food synthesizers. How did we never notice this before? Perhaps we were too busy watching their other peculiarities, Tilara replied, her antennae twitching with amusement as she watched James return for his promised lunch break. Like their ability to work in multiple gravity environments, or their strange habit of expressing emotions through facial movements. The diner's doors slid open with a soft hiss as Sarah Martinez entered, now fresh from sleep and ready for her breakfast, despite it being the station's designated afternoon cycle. She was accompanied by a curious-looking Nexarian engineer, whose crystalline form sparkled under the diner's lights. I still don't understand. The Nexarian, who introduced himself as Zix, said to Sarah, "You're saying humans require multiple rest cycles between these feeding sessions?" Sarah laughed, sliding onto her usual stool. No. We usually sleep once per day, for about 8 hours. The rest of the time, we're active, and we need regular meals to maintain our energy levels. Dr. Vixtera's head crest flared with interest. 8 hours? Just 8? And the rest of the time you're conscious and functioning? Well, yeah, James chimed in from his seat, where he was demolishing something called a club sandwich. How long do other species sleep? The answers came from around the diner, creating a cascade of surprising revelations. Silaxians required 20 hours of deep hibernation every 2 days. Nexarians entered periodic stasis for 3 full days each week. Arthaxians like Tilara needed 12 hours of regenerative rest daily. Even the hardy Corvellians admitted to 14-hour sleep cycles. By the void, Dr. Vixtera breathed, her scales shifting to a deep blue of astonishment. This explains so much about human productivity metrics. They're not just awake more. They're actively working, thinking, and creating during all those extra hours. The implications rippled through the gathered crowd. Humans weren't just eating more frequently. They were living at a fundamentally different pace than most sentient species. Their seemingly constant need for sustenance wasn't inefficiency. It was the fuel that powered their remarkable endurance. Station Security Chief Corvin Call, a burly Corvellian who had just entered the diner, added his own observation. This explains why human security teams are so effective. During the Cassini crisis last month, our human officers worked 3 consecutive shifts without entering rest cycle. We thought they were pushing themselves to dangerous limits. But they were just following their normal patterns. Tilara finished, her exoskeleton shifting to thoughtful purple. They ate between shifts, consumed something called energy drinks, and kept going. James wiped his mouth, looking somewhat embarrassed by the attention. It's not really that impressive. We just evolved to be persistent. On Earth, that meant we could chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Here in space, it means we can keep stations running while other species rest. Sarah nodded, diving into her delayed breakfast. It's why mixed species crews work so well. While one group rests, humans can keep essential systems operating. We just need regular access to sustenance, Dr. Vixtera concluded, making notes on her medical pad. We've been approaching human dietary requirements all wrong. It's not about the quantity of food. It's about the timing and frequency. The revelation sparked immediate discussion about station operations. Zix, the Nexarian engineer, began calculating how to optimize work schedules around human eating patterns. Chief Kittle started reviewing security rotation protocols. Even the station's commerce director, a usually reserved Arthaxian, began considering the economic implications of human consumption patterns. Tilara watched it all unfold from behind her counter, feeling a deep satisfaction. What had started as a simple observation about human eating habits was transforming into a station-wide reassessment of human capabilities and contributions. As the afternoon cycle progressed, more humans filtered in and out of the diner, each maintaining their own unique schedule of meals and breaks. To the watching aliens, each human now represented not just an individual, but a testament to their species' remarkable adaptability and endurance. Tilara, James called out as he prepared to return to his shift. You might want to stock up on supplies. I think you're about to get a lot busier. Looking at the growing crowd of curious aliens in her diner, all eager to observe and understand human eating habits, Tilara realized he was right. The Galactic Diner was about to become more than just a feeding station. It was becoming a cultural observatory where the true nature of human endurance was finally being understood. Her antennae twitched with anticipation. This was only the beginning of the changes to come. The Endurance Challenge. Station Log 2487. Outpost Zenith 7. Emergency Protocol active. The warning klaxons began blaring during station midnight, when most non-human crew members were entering their rest cycles. A cascade failure in the primary power grid threatened to disable life support across 3 residential sectors of Zenith 7. Status report. Station Commander Arxful demanded, his crystalline form pulsing with urgency as he entered the emergency command center. Sarah Martinez, now on her 3rd consecutive shift in cargo operations, quickly pulled up the diagnostic displays. The power surge damaged the primary coolant systems. Secondary systems are failing to compensate, and we're looking at total grid failure in approximately 6 hours. Around the command center, various alien crew members showed signs of strain. Most have been awakened from their rest cycles, their species biology protesting the interruption of crucial sleep patterns. The Sylaxian engineering chief could barely keep his head crest from drooping, while several Arthaxian technicians' exoskeletons had dulled to an exhausted gray. James Chen burst into the command center, his engineering uniform stained with coolant residue. Commander, I've got a temporary bypass running, but we need to replace the primary coolant manifolds. All of them. Commander Arxful's crystalline surface flickered with concern. That's at least 18 hours of continuous work. Our engineering crews require rest cycles. The humans can handle it. Sarah interrupted, already pulling up crew manifests. We've got 23 human crew members currently on station. If we coordinate with Tilara to set up a mobile feeding station near the worksite, we can maintain continuous operations. The commander's surface rippled with surprise. You're suggesting the humans work through all 18 hours, with rotating breaks for meals? Yes, James confirmed, already sending out alerts to his human colleagues. We can establish 3 teams, one working on manifold replacement, one handling power regulation, and one resting and eating. Rotate every 2 hours. The non-human crew members watched in astonishment as the human response plan unfolded. Tilara quickly converted her diner into an emergency support station, preparing high-energy meals that could be quickly consumed between repair shifts. The humans moved with seemingly inexhaustible energy, trading jokes even as they tackled the grueling work. Hour after hour, they persisted. When one human team emerged from the access tunnels, sweating and tired but still alert, another would take their place, fresh from a meal break and ready to work. They consumed what seemed like astronomical amounts of food and liquid, but their productivity never wavered. Dr. Vixtera monitored their vital signs with professional fascination. "Their bodies are actually designed for this," she explained to the commander. "The frequent meals maintain their blood sugar levels, while their efficient rest periods allow for quick recovery. They're not pushing themselves to dangerous limits. This is what they're built for." The crisis reached its peak during the 12th hour, when a power fluctuation threatened to undo their progress. The human repair team, led by James, worked in triple gravity conditions for 45 minutes straight to stabilize the system. They emerged exhausted but triumphant, immediately heading to Tolera's temporary canteen to refuel before the next shift. "How do you maintain such efficiency?" Commander Arxthal asked Sarah, watching as she coordinated the repair teams while simultaneously monitoring power levels and consuming something she called a protein bar. Sarah shrugged, washing down the bar with coffee. "This is nothing compared to some of the endurance challenges we do for fun back on Earth. Marathons, triathlons, 24-hour work shifts in emergency services. Humans are persistence predators. We evolved to just keep going." By the 16th hour, the non-human crew members had cycled through multiple rest periods, each species requiring significant recovery time. But the human teams maintained their rotation, their determination never flagging. Tolera's food supplies were running low, but the humans adapted, sharing rations and encouraging each other with reminders of Earth foods they'd feast on once the crisis was resolved. Finally, at hour 17, James' voice crackled over the comm system. "Final manifold replaced. Power levels stabilizing. We did it." The cheer that went up in the command center was multilingual and multispecies, but the sentiment was universal. Amazement at human endurance. Commander Arxthal's form glowed with approval as he reviewed the repair logs. "In all my years commanding space stations," he announced, "I have never seen such sustained performance. Your species' ability to maintain high-level function through multiple work cycles, supported by your unique dietary patterns, is remarkable." Sarah and James exchanged tired but proud glances. "We just did what humans do best," Sarah said. "We kept going until the job was done." As the emergency protocols were finally lifted, Tolera observed the human repair teams gathering in her diner for a celebratory meal. Despite having worked for nearly 18 hours straight, they were still animated, sharing stories and planning improvements to prevent future coolant system failures. The crisis had done more than just prove human endurance. It had demonstrated why humans had become such crucial members of space station crews. Their unique biology, fueled by frequent meals and efficient rest cycles, made them the perfect adaptable workforce for the unpredictable challenges of space. Commander Arxthal made a final note in the station log. Recommendation: increase human crew complement by 50%. Their continuous operational capacity and sustained performance levels are not just impressive. They're essential to station survival. Breaking barriers. Station log 2488. Outpost Zenith 7. 3 weeks after the coolant crisis. The Galactic Diner hummed with activity as Tolera supervised the installation of new automated food dispensers alongside her traditional kitchen setup. After the coolant system crisis, Station Command had finally approved her proposal for a 24/7 nutrition center, a concept that had previously seemed unnecessary to the predominantly rest cycle-dependent alien administration. "The new setup looks great, Tolera," Sarah commented, watching as an Nexarian technician calibrated the machines. "No more emergency ration bars during night shifts." Tolera's antennae wiggled with satisfaction. "This is only the beginning. Watch this." She pressed a sequence on the nearest dispenser, and a perfectly portioned meal materialized, complete with nutritional information calibrated for human dietary needs. The system can track individual preferences and optimal feeding schedules. The changes weren't limited to the diner. All across Zenith 7, the station was undergoing a transformation. Chief Engineer Kavor, a Salaxian who had witnessed the humans' performance during the crisis, had revolutionized the shift scheduling system. We've restructured our entire maintenance protocol, Kavor explained to Commander HFY during the morning briefing. His holographic display showed an intricate web of overlapping schedules. By synchronizing human work periods with other species' rest cycles, we've achieved continuous operation without straining any crew members. The commander's crystalline form pulsed with approval as he reviewed the efficiency metrics. Station productivity had increased by 37% since implementing the new system, and the humans are comfortable with these arrangements. More than comfortable, James added, pulling up additional data. By acknowledging our natural patterns instead of trying to force us into alien sleep cycles, you've actually reduced stress levels among human crew members. Plus, the new feeding stations throughout the station mean we're never far from sustenance during critical tasks. The changes weren't just operational. The station's design itself was being modified to accommodate human needs and capabilities. New gravity gradient sections allowed humans to maintain their strength in higher gravity, while other species could work in their preferred conditions. Exercise facilities, a uniquely human requirement, were installed throughout the station. Dr. Vixtera had established a dedicated human health monitoring system, which tracked the crew's vital signs and nutritional needs with unprecedented precision. Their adaptability is remarkable, she reported during a medical staff meeting. When we provide the right support structure, regular meals, exercise opportunities, and appropriate work-rest cycles, humans can maintain peak performance almost indefinitely. The station's success was attracting attention throughout the sector. Other space stations began requesting information about Zenith 7's human integration protocols. Tulare found herself hosting delegations of alien administrators, all eager to understand how her diner had become the model for supporting human crew members. The key, she explained to a visiting Arthaxian station manager, was stopping trying to make humans adapt to our patterns and instead adapting our facilities to support theirs. The results spoke for themselves. Emergency response times had dropped by 45%. Maintenance backlogs were at historic lows. Even the station's research facilities were showing improved output, as human scientists' longer active periods allowed for more continuous observation of long-term experiments. But perhaps the most significant change was in the station's culture. The barriers between species began to break down as the crew adapted to each other's rhythms. Alien crew members scheduled their active periods to overlap with human shifts, learning to appreciate the benefits of more frequent social interactions. Humans, in turn, became more attuned to their colleagues' needs for longer rest cycles. Sarah noticed this one evening as she entered the diner for her midnight snack, a concept that still amused Tilara. A group of Corvellian engineers, traditionally resistant to changing their rest patterns, had adjusted their schedule to share a meal with their human colleagues before beginning their sleep cycle. It's not just about efficiency anymore, Sarah remarked to Tilara, watching the mixed group laugh over some shared joke. We're creating something new here, a truly integrated community. James, joining them after his shift, nodded in agreement. The coolant crisis showed what humans could do in an emergency, but this, he gestured to the busy diner, where various species were sharing meals and conversation across their traditional temporal boundaries. This shows what we can all do together. Commander HFY made an unusual appearance in the diner that evening, his crystalline form gleaming under the ambient lights. When we first began accepting human crew members, he announced to the gathered crowd, many thought their different patterns would be a liability. Now we understand that these differences are precisely what make them, and this station, exceptional. Tilara, watching from behind her counter as humans and aliens shared meals and stories, realized they had created more than just a new operational system. They had proven that adaptation and understanding could transform perceived weaknesses into strengths. The station's latest promotional materials now proudly proclaimed, Zenith 7, where human endurance meets alien innovation. But to those who worked there, it had become something even more significant, a model for how different species could work together, each contributing their unique strengths to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Tilara, Sarah called out, interrupting her thoughts. We're going to need more of that special blend coffee you make. The night shift is about to start, and you know how humans fuel their persistence. Tilara's exoskeleton shimmered with amusement as she began preparing the drinks. Yes, humans needed to eat 5 times a day, and the station was better for it. A new understanding. Station Log 2489. Outpost Zenith 7. 1 year after initial discovery, the annual Interstellar Station Commanders Conference was being held on Zenith 7, and Tilara's galactic diner had never been busier. Station commanders from across the galaxy crowded the expanded facility, all eager to understand how a simple observation about human eating habits had revolutionized space station operations. It began right here, Tilara explained to the assembled dignitaries, her exoskeleton glowing with pride, with a human eating what they called second breakfast, and a simple question about their feeding patterns. The station's success had become legendary in the year since the coolant crisis. Zenith 7's productivity metrics had set new records, its emergency response protocols were being adopted across the sector, and applications from both human and alien crew members had increased tenfold. Commander Arxthal stood at the center of the diner, his crystalline form projecting data displays for all to see. The secret wasn't just accommodating human dietary needs, he explained. It was understanding that their constant energy requirements reflected a fundamental truth about their species. Humans are built for continuous adaptation and persistence. Sarah and James, now promoted to department heads, shared knowing looks as they listened to the commander's presentation. They had become minor celebrities in the station operations community, their handling of the coolant crisis having become a case study in human endurance and problem-solving. What truly sets humans apart, Dr. Vixtera added, her scales shimmering as she presented her medical findings, is not just their ability to maintain extended periods of activity through frequent nutrition. It's their capacity to transform this biological necessity into a cultural strength. The evidence was all around them. The diner had evolved into a 24/7 community hub, where shift changes between species were celebrated with shared meals and cultural exchange. The station's operational protocols, once rigidly divided by species rest cycles, now flowed in a continuous rhythm of activity that maximized each species' natural patterns. We've seen a 60% increase in cross-species collaborations, reported the station's cultural affairs officer, a Nexarian named Zix. Humans' constant presence throughout all cycles has created natural bridges between traditionally isolated shift groups. But perhaps the most significant change was in how other species had begun to view humans. No longer were they seen as inefficient creatures requiring excessive sustenance. Instead, they were recognized as the vital connective tissue that held space operations together. A visiting Corvellian admiral raised an interesting point. In space warfare simulations, stations with integrated human crews show 89% higher survival rates during extended crises. Their ability to maintain continuous operations while other species rest has proven invaluable. Yet they use this same endurance for peace, added a Salaxian science director. Our research stations report that human scientists' working patterns have accelerated breakthrough discoveries by maintaining observation continuity through critical experiments. As if to demonstrate the point, a group of human engineers entered the diner, fresh from installing upgrades to the station's renewable energy systems. They were chatting animatedly with their alien colleagues, sharing ideas over their 4th meal of the day. "Look at them," Tilara said softly to Sarah. Still full of energy after 12 hours of work, still engaging with new ideas and possibilities. Sarah smiled, sipping her ever-present coffee. That's the thing about humans, we're not just persistent in physical tasks. Our minds stay active too, always processing, always adapting. The food isn't just fuel for our bodies, it's fuel for our curiosity. Commander Arxthal concluded the conference with an announcement that sent ripples through the assembled dignitaries. The Interstellar Council has approved funding for a new class of space stations designed from the ground up to integrate human operational patterns with all known sentient species requirements. The news was met with enthusiasm, particularly from stations that had struggled to maintain continuous operations with traditional crew compositions. Humans, once seen as an unusual addition to space crews, were now being actively recruited across the galaxy. As the conference wound down, James found himself in conversation with a young Arthaxian engineer who was eager to understand human capabilities. "But don't you ever get tired?" the engineer asked. James laughed, gesturing to the busy diner around them. "Of course we do. We're not inexhaustible, but we've learned that with the right support, good food, short rest periods, and meaningful work, we can keep going long enough to make a difference. That's all anyone can ask for, really." Lara, overhearing the conversation, felt her antennae twitch with satisfaction. Her simple observation about human eating habits had sparked a revolution in interspecies cooperation. The diner's walls were now lined with commendations and thank-you notes from crews whose lives had been saved by human persistence during crises across the galaxy. "You know," she said to Sarah as they watched the conference participants depart, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful humans need to eat so often. It's brought more life to this station than I ever imagined possible." Sarah grinned, already reaching for the coffee pot. "Well, you know what they say now. A station runs on human time, but it thrives on human energy." As the artificial day cycle began again on Zenith 7, humans and aliens moved through their perfectly synchronized rhythms of work and rest, each species contributing its unique strengths to the greater whole. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth. What had once been seen as a human weakness, their constant need for sustenance, had proven to be their greatest gift to the stars. Commander Arxthal's final entry in the station log read, "The future of space exploration belongs not to any one species, but to the harmony of all. And in that harmony, human persistence plays a melody that never ends."